Take a slow breath in and let it fall gently out. Settle into a comfortable position, let your shoulders drop, and allow the world around you to soften for a little while. Before we begin, if you enjoy quiet storytelling, soft history, and peaceful nighttime narratives, you're welcome to subscribe to this channel. Now, let your mind drift lightly as we step together into a slow and gentle retelling of the moments surrounding Pearl Harbor. The morning begins in a soft hush. Pearl Harbor rests beneath a pale, early sky. Water barely moves, touching the docks with small, sleepy ripples. The breeze is warm, gentle, carrying the faint scent of salt and wood. Nothing is hurried. The harbor feels like it's still waking, stretching slowly into the day. Ships sit quietly in the bay, large shapes softened by the early glow. Their steel hulls catch the first hint of morning light, turning cool grey into faint silver. A few lanterns still shine along the decks, dim and warm, like tiny stars waiting to fade. A lone sailor steps onto the deck, holding a warm cup of coffee. Steam curls gently into the air. He takes a slow breath, letting the quiet settle around him. Only the distant call of a bird breaks the stillness. Palm fronds sway lightly along the shoreline road. A jeep rolls by at an easy pace, its engine humming low and steady. Shadows from the trees stretch long and soft across the ground, moving gently in the breeze. Below deck, lamps cast a dim amber glow. Footsteps echo softly along the narrow corridor, each step slow, patient, unhurried. The quiet hum of the ship blends with breathing and distant murmurs. In the mess hall, breakfast trays clink gently. The smell of eggs and coffee fills the warm air. Conversations drift in low, relaxed tones. Someone laughs softly, the sound calm and easy, blending into the morning. Outside, the sky lifts into a brighter blue. Thin clouds stretch across the horizon, touched with gold at their edges. The light lands on the water in soft, glowing streaks. A tugboat moves slowly through the harbor, leaving a smooth trail behind it. The wake stretches like a gentle fan across the water, widening with every quiet second. On the Arizona, sailors lean on the railing, watching the sunlight creep over the water. Their voices stay low, hardly above a whisper. The day feels open, wide, and easy. Seagulls pass overhead in slow arcs. Their shadows move lazily across the deck, drifting like soft brushstrokes. The wind rustles the ropes lightly. On shore, workers lift crates with steady, practiced motions. Each thud against the wooden dock is muted, softened by the open air. Their breaths rise in calm rhythms. Mist drifts across the far end of the harbor. It curls around ships, blurring edges and turning metal into soft silhouettes. Everything seems wrapped in quiet warmth. A radio hums softly inside a guard post. A quiet tune floats out through open windows, mixing with the breeze. The notes drift gently before fading into the distance. A young mechanic walks down the dock, hands in pockets. His boots tap softly on the wood. He pauses to breathe in the scent of sea air, eyes half closed in the calm. A rowboat rocks gently near the shallows. The tide nudges it in slow, sleepy motions. Oars rest inside, untouched, lined with soft shadows. The sun rises higher, warming the metal rails. Light spreads across the decks in broad, gentle streaks. Sailors blink against the glow, adjusting to the brightening day. On the shoreline, palm trees sway in slow, relaxing arcs. Their leaves whisper softly overhead, brushing together in a calming rhythm. Inside a workshop, tools hang neatly along wooden shelves. A fan turned slowly, circulating warm air. The steady hum adds a soothing undertone to the quiet space. A sailor polishes a brass fixture with slow, careful movements. Each stroke catches the light, creating small golden flashes that glow softly. Small boats drift in the distance, rocked by a mild tide. Their movements are almost imperceptible, like the breathing of the harbour itself. Workers on the pier pause to stretch, lifting their arms slowly. The morning breeze cools their skin. Their breaths come steady, relaxed. Clouds drift lazily overhead, thin and bright. Their reflections shimmer across the harbour, rippling with every small movement of the water. A sailor leans over the railing, watching the patterns in the water. The shifting colours calm him, the tide moving slow and steady like a quiet breath. The mountains rise in the distance, their slopes tinted green and blue. A thin layer of mist clings to the ridges, slowly lifting in the warm light. The harbour hums with soft life. Footsteps, gentle voices, water brushing the docks, all merging into a single, calm rhythm. Inside the barracks, a bell rings lightly, not sharp, not urgent, just a simple reminder that the day has begun. The sound drifts out into the warm air. Sailors walk out in a relaxed line, adjusting uniforms, stretching their arms. Their footsteps are soft, blending with the peaceful flow of the morning. Laundry flutters gently on a line near the shore. Shirts and towels sway in the breeze, casting soft, moving shadows on the ground. Far out on the water, a small boat drifts alone. It rocks slowly, following the tide. The horizon glows softly behind it, carrying the promise of a long, quiet day. The harbour feels suspended in calm. Light, wind, water, and voices all blend into one quiet moment that seems to last longer than it should, gently holding the world in stillness. The early morning air drifted gently over the quiet harbour, carrying the soft scent of sea salt. A few sailors stretched as they stepped onto the deck, their movements slow and unhurried. The sky above shifted into pale blues and soft creams, like watercolour spreading over smooth paper. Light ripples touched the sides of each ship, making a soft tapping sound that blended into the calm around them. The water shimmered faintly as the sun climbed a little higher, brushing the surface with warm, delicate strokes. A few birds glided low over the harbour, their wings silent except for the faintest rustle. Sailors paused to watch them drift across the water, their movements smooth and peaceful, like slow strokes of paint. On the pier, a sailor carried a small crate, the wood creaking softly in his arms. Each step was steady, measured, blending with the quiet rhythm of the morning. The gentle sway of the harbour greeted him with familiar comfort. Farther out, a patrol boat drifted slowly, its engine barely audible. The water opened in soft ripples behind it, folding into the calm surface like fabric settling into place. The mountains rose quietly in the distance, wrapped in thin morning mist. Their shapes were softened, edges blurred, as though the world had not yet fully awakened. The harbour mirrored their stillness. A sailor leaned against a railing, sipping warm coffee from a tin mug. The steam curled gently upward, dissolving into the cool air. He watched the smooth water below, letting the warmth settle slowly through his hands. On deck, another sailor polished a brass fixture with slow, circular motions. The soft, rhythmic pattern made a soothing sound, blending with the gentle hum of the waking harbour. A gentle breeze drifted through the harbour, carrying the faint scent of pine from the hills. Sailors paused for a moment, breathing it in, letting the freshness bring a quiet ease to their thoughts. A flag near the command building fluttered softly, its fabric moving in slow, steady waves. Morning light illuminated its folds with warm color, adding a peaceful glow to the quiet scene. The harbour grew quieter as the first hints of dusk settled across the water. A soft, cool breeze drifted in from the open sea, brushing lightly against the ships. Sailors moved more slowly now, their steps unhurried, as if matching the rhythm of the evening. Warm light glowed gently in windows, casting steady amber reflections that shimmered on the calm surface. On the deck of the Arizona, a sailor leaned on the railing, watching the colors change above the mountains. The sky stretched into soft lavender and pale rose, blending like paint on wet paper. He breathed slowly, letting the calm settle into his shoulders. The water below rocked gently, each wave rising and falling with quiet patience. Farther down the dock, a mechanic wiped grease from his hands, folding the cloth carefully before placing it on a crate. His day's work finished, he paused to simply listen. The creak of wood, the soft murmur of voices, the faint hum of a generator far down the pier. Everything blended into a soothing, steady hum of evening life. Barrels, ropes, and small tools were stacked neatly along the walkway, their edges blurred by the softening light. Two sailors passed by, speaking in low tones, their conversation drifting gently into the air. Their quiet laughter mixed with the sound of the tide, as if the ocean itself responded with a soft, rolling chuckle. Light from the mess hall spilled through the open doorway, warm and golden. Inside, a few men lingered over late meals, the clink of cutlery subdued and rhythmic. Someone hummed under their breath, a familiar tune that floated softly into the hallway, blending with the hush of evening air. The setting sun dipped lower, its final glow stretching across the harbour like a slow, fading ribbon of orange. Clouds thinned into delicate streaks, catching pieces of the sun's colour before letting them slip into deeper hues. The water reflected these shifting tones, turning from gold to pink, then to a soft, twilight blue. A small group of sailors sat on the edge of the pier, feet dangling just above the water. They spoke little, letting the quiet comfort of the evening carry them. One skipped a smooth stone across the surface, watching it hop lightly before sinking with barely a sound. The palm trees along the shore rustled with the mildest movement, their long fronds shimmering in the shifting light. The breeze threaded between them with gentleness, carrying faint scents of warm earth and distant flowers. The island felt wrapped in tranquil breaths. One sailor walked slowly along the quiet path near the shoreline, hands resting in his pockets. He listened to the waves brushing softly against the rocks, each sound arriving like a small, calming whisper. His steps matched the rhythm without effort, naturally falling into the evening's pace. Night began to gather overhead, deepening the sky into soft indigo. Stars appeared one by one, tiny glimmers scattered across the growing darkness. The harbour lights flickered gently, their reflections stretching into long, thin shapes that swayed with the tide's slow pulse. Sailors moved about more quietly now, their voices low and calm. Some finished final chores for the evening, securing ropes, checking equipment, and closing hatches with steady hands. Their motions were slow, unhurried, shaped by routine and the softness of the coming night. A radio played gently from inside a cabin, the music faint and warm. The soft melody drifted onto the deck, weaving between the footsteps and the sound of the water. It created a peaceful backdrop, as if the entire harbour was settling into a quiet lullaby. Further down the pier, a lantern swayed slightly in the breeze, its light shifting with each small movement. The glow illuminated the wooden planks below in a soft circle, warming the night with its calm, steady presence. A moth fluttered nearby, wings brushing the lantern glass. In the barracks, a few men wrote quiet letters home, their pencils scratching gently against paper. Some paused between lines, gazing thoughtfully out the window at the darkening clouds. The scene felt still, anchored by the comfort of routine and the softness of the night. Outside, the moon began to rise, pale and calm above the harbour. Its reflection stretched across the water in a shimmering path, swaying gently as the tide moved. The light cast soft, rounded shadows along the decks and docks, giving the night a dreamlike ease. A sailor paused at the rail, resting his arms comfortably as he watched the moon climb higher. He breathed slowly, letting the cool night air settle into his chest. The peacefulness around him felt complete, wrapping the harbour in a soothing, protective stillness. Far across the harbour, laughter drifted lightly from a small group, finishing their evening chores. The sound was soft and relaxed, carrying no urgency. It rose gently into the night, mingling with the quiet rhythm of waves brushing the hulls of the ships. The air cooled further as night deepened, brushing softly against the skin. The scent of salt water grew sharper, mixing faintly with pine from the nearby hills. Everything felt balanced and unhurried, as if time itself had slowed to match the harbour's gentle tempo. Lights on the ships flickered softly, steady but warm. Sailors moved inside the cabins and passageways, their silhouettes passing through thin curtains of amber glow. Each ship felt like a quiet floating village preparing for rest. The harbour, fully embraced by night now, breathed with slow, rhythmic calm. The tide pushed gently against the shore. The stars gathered more brightly overhead. Everything seemed softened, as if wrapped in a blanket of stillness that settled deeply over the water and the lives upon it. On one of the docks, a sailor sat with his back against a crate, legs stretched out comfortably. He watched the reflections sway in the water, the lights moving like soft, drifting brushstrokes. His breathing fell into a slow rhythm, matching the tide's gentle rise and fall. A dog wandered lazily along the pier, tail swaying in calm arcs. It paused to sniff the wood planks, then trotted toward a small group of sailors who welcomed it with soft voices and slow pets. The dog curled beside them, settling into the gentle warmth of their presence. Farther out, the ships stood steady, their silhouettes outlined by the moonlit sky. The soft clink of metal against metal carried across the water, a soothing, predictable sound that blended perfectly with the night's calm. Everything felt anchored, peaceful, and still. Inside a dim cabin, a sailor read from a small, worn book. The pages rustled quietly as he turned them, the sound barely louder than a whisper. His lamp cast a warm circle of light, soft enough to keep the room feeling gentle and secure. The night breeze shifted again, cooler now, slipping across the decks like a slow sigh. Flags moved lightly against their poles, their edges fluttering with delicate, barely there sounds. The harbour accepted the breeze with calm familiarity. A pair of sailors walked along the pier, their steps easy and unhurried. Their conversation was low and steady, drifting out over the water in soft waves. They paused at the edge, leaning forward to watch small fish flicker beneath the surface. Clouds wandered slowly across the sky, moving in long, smooth shapes. They shifted from pale grey to deep blue as they passed before the moon. The drifting shadows travelled across the decks in gentle waves, adding a quiet sense of motion to the still night. In the distance, a faint whistle echoed from one of the watch stations, a routine signal marking the hour. The sound was calm and familiar, gently reminding the night crew of their steady responsibilities. Nothing hurried, nothing pressed. The harbour kept its slow rhythm. A sailor inside the radio room adjusted a dial, the soft crackle of static filling the air. He listened intently, nodding to himself before settling back into his chair. The gentle hum of the equipment created a steady backdrop, comforting in its constancy. Outside, lanterns swayed gently with each subtle movement of the ships. Their reflections created long streaks across the harbour, lines of warm light bending and stretching as if painted onto the water with soft, slow strokes. A sailor on night watch leaned against the railing, hands tucked into his sleeves for warmth. He listened to the quiet harmony of the water and the distant hum of generators. The world around him felt softened, every sound wrapped in the calm of the hour. Near the shoreline, small waves slid across the sand with slow, sweeping motions. Each wave carried a low, soothing sound as it met the land, then slipped back again. Palm fronds above clicked lightly together, stirred by the cool breeze. A few sailors gathered around a small outdoor table, sharing quiet conversation over warm drinks. The steam rose softly from their cups, disappearing quickly into the cool night air. Their voices blended into the peaceful, steady hum of the evening. The moon climbed higher, brightening the harbour with a soft, silvery glow. Shadows sharpened gently, stretching long and thin across the decks. The water shimmered with tiny highlights as though sprinkled with faint, glowing dust. In the barracks, some sailors prepared for sleep. Boots were placed neatly under bunks, uniforms folded with habitual care. The soft rustle of blankets and the low murmur of final goodnights filled the dimly lit space, settling into quiet. Outside, the night deepened further. The stillness settled like a soft blanket over the water, smoothing out its surface into gentle, breathing waves. The harbour felt sheltered, calm, and at ease within the soft glow of moon and stars. A lone sailor remained awake on deck, sitting quietly beside a coiled rope. He gazed upward at the stars, tracing slow paths between them with his eyes. His breathing grew even and relaxed, matching the night's quiet rhythm. From the hills beyond the harbour, night insects chirped in soft, steady patterns. Their distant rhythm blended gently with the sounds of the harbour, creating a natural lullaby that drifted across the water and into the quiet spaces between ships. The watch shift changed quietly. Footsteps approached, voices murmured greetings, and the previous watch stepped back toward the interior, their work done. The transition was smooth and calm, a gentle passing of responsibility in the softness of the night. The harbour lights dimmed slightly as midnight approached. The water moved in slow, relaxed motions, its surface reflecting the moon as if holding it gently. Every sound seemed softened, subtle, familiar, and wrapped in peace. A gentle breeze passed through the rigging, making the ropes hum softly. Sailors on deck paused to listen, letting the quiet vibration settle over them. The sound was steady, soothing, like the heartbeat of the harbour itself. Near the shoreline, waves brushed lightly against the sand. Tiny ripples reflected moonlight like scattered silver dust. The tide moved slow, gentle, measured, whispering secrets only the harbour seemed to understand. In a quiet corner, a lantern glowed beside a coiled rope. Its light shimmered on the water in delicate strokes. A sailor rested nearby, breathing slowly, his eyes half closed, letting the calm enfold him. A small motorboat rocked gently in the distance, its outline blurred in the moonlight, and the sound of its mild creak drifted faintly across the harbour. Everything felt slow, measured, and safe. Inside the captain's cabin, a soft lamp glowed on a desk. Papers were stacked neatly, charts spread carefully. The quiet scratch of a pen moving across paper punctuated the otherwise serene night, steady and calming. Far above, stars shifted slowly across the sky. Their light glimmered faintly, tiny points of calm amidst the deep indigo. The constellations seemed steady, watching silently over the harbour below. On the pier, a sailor adjusted a coiled rope. Each movement was slow and deliberate, almost meditative. The soft sound of the rope against wood added a rhythmic, soothing pulse to the night air. The distant mountains faded into shadows, their outlines soft and hazy. The faint silhouette of trees lined the ridges, swaying subtly in the calm night wind. Everything appeared softened, as though painted with a gentle hand. A gentle hum came from the engine room, low and steady. Sailors passing by noticed it, nodding slightly before continuing. The sound blended perfectly with the natural rhythm of the water and wind. The moonlight reflected on the Arizona's deck, highlighting subtle textures of metal and wood. Sailors leaned casually against the rails, watching the shimmering water without speaking, absorbing the quiet together. A gentle fog began to drift over the water, softening shapes and lines. Ships became silhouettes, and the distant hills faded into mist. The harbour seemed to exhale slowly, embracing the subtle haze. Two sailors walked quietly along the pier, their steps slow. One paused to peer into the water, watching tiny waves lap against the pilings. The moonlight danced on the surface, soft and ever-changing. A night bird called from a nearby tree, its cry low and warm. The sound travelled across the water and was absorbed into the quiet of the harbour. Every echo seemed deliberate, part of the night's rhythm. Lanterns on the docks flickered slightly with the night breeze. Their reflections stretched like delicate ribbons across the calm water, warming the cool tones of the harbour just enough to feel inviting. On the Nevada, a sailor traced a pattern in the wood with his fingers, each movement slow and intentional. The texture beneath his hands, the smell of the deck, and the sound of water all blended into a comforting sense of place. In a corner, a hammock swayed gently, empty but moving with the subtle rhythm of the wind. It whispered softly against the wooden posts, creating a quiet, lulling sound that travelled across the deck. The harbour's edge glimmered faintly as small, bioluminescent waves brushed the shore. Each shimmer rose and fell slowly, like tiny lanterns scattered across the water, glowing softly under the moon. Sailors in the mess hall finished their last cups of tea. They spoke quietly, laughter muted, voices blending with the hum of the night. Each man seemed content to simply exist in the peaceful harbour air. The tide moved steadily, carrying small ripples toward the docks. Each wave brushed the pilings with soft, repeated rhythm, as if marking time gently without hurry. The harbour seemed to listen and respond in kind. A watch lantern glowed faintly on the Arizona, marking its place against the dark water. Sailors passed nearby, their shadows stretching long and thin, moving with calm and deliberate care. Every step matched the harbour's slow heartbeat. The moon now high, its silver glow softened by drifting clouds. Sailors paused at intervals along the pier, looking out across the water. Each pause was slow, deliberate, allowing the quiet night to fill every space between heartbeats and footsteps. A soft clatter of distant rope echoed as a sailor adjusted a mooring line. The sound was calm, deliberate, carrying across the still water in tiny, gentle waves. It merged seamlessly with the quiet rhythm of the night. On the Arizona's deck, a lone figure sat quietly, staring at the sky. The clouds passed slowly overhead, the stars blinking gently through gaps. Each breath felt long, steady and measured, in harmony with the harbour around him. A small dinghy rocked gently in the bay, tethered loosely to a piling. Its slow motions matched the sway of the tide, creating a soft, hypnotic rhythm. The water shimmered under the moonlight, calm and steady. From the hills beyond the harbour, a soft rustle of leaves carried down to the water. The sound drifted like a lullaby, threading between the distant hum of engines and quiet whispers of the sailors on deck. Lanterns along the docks swayed with the mild breeze. Their light stretched across the water in soft ribbons, illuminating the planks in warm tones. Each flicker felt gentle, unhurried, like a heartbeat. A sailor leaned on the railing, watching a school of tiny fish glimmer beneath the moonlit surface. Their movements were slow and fluid, the water wrapping them in soft, silvery waves. The sight brought a deep, quiet contentment. The distant mountains stood quiet and still, wrapped in shades of deep blue and grey. The mist around their bases shimmered faintly, carrying the hush of night across the harbour in soft whispers. Inside a cabin, a soft flicker of candlelight cast long shadows across the wooden walls. A sailor wrote slowly in a journal, each word deliberate, the scratching pen mingling with the quiet breathing of the ship. The tide nudged the hulls of the ships ever so slightly. Each gentle movement made a subtle creak, a sound absorbed into the calm night. Everything felt alive, yet entirely at peace. A sailor walking along the pier paused to observe the glow of the distant lights on the water. The colours blurred softly in the gentle waves, creating a painting-like reflection that calmed the mind. A soft breeze carried the scent of salt and wood across the harbour. Sailors inhaled slowly, savouring the familiar aroma that marked the rhythm of their home among the ships. From the distant hills, a single nightbird called. Its sound echoed softly over the water, gentle and melodic, like a thread woven through the quiet tapestry of the harbour. The moonlight shimmered on the Arizona's deck, highlighting the brass fixtures in soft glimmers. Sailors moving quietly across the deck seemed almost part of the gentle reflections themselves. A coiled rope swayed slightly in the breeze. Its subtle movement produced a quiet, rhythmic sound, like a soft whisper, blending perfectly with the slow heartbeat of the night. A sailor leaned back against the railing, eyes half closed, letting the harbour breathe him in. The night carried him in its rhythm, slow and steady, like the gentle lapping of waves. The tides carried a faint shimmer of light toward the pier. Each wave moved with soft patience, rising and falling in a steady, hypnotic motion that lulled the senses. Lanterns flickered and swayed gently, casting warm circles of light. Sailors passing beneath them felt the glow wrap softly around them, a small comfort against the vast calm of night. The harbour, fully enveloped in night, held an almost magical stillness. Stars mirrored on the water, tides moved with gentle patience, and every sound carried the weightless calm of an endless lullaby. Finally, the world seemed to sigh. Every ship, sailor, and ripple paused in gentle harmony. The harbour slept quietly under the moon and stars, wrapped in soft silver light, a moment suspended in peace and endless calm. Thank you for relaxing and finding calm with this story of Pearl Harbor. For more stories like this to help you relax or fall asleep, be sure to subscribe. In the meantime, sleep well and dream good dreams.